The Dacians were an Indo-European people, part of or related to the Thracians. Dacians were the ancient inhabitants of Dacia, located in the area in and around the Carpathian Mountains and west of the Black Sea. This area includes the present-day countries of Romania and Moldova, as well as parts of Ukraine, eastern Serbia, northern Bulgaria, Slovakia, Hungary and southern Poland. The Dacians spoke the Dacian language, believed to have been closely related to Thracian, but were somewhat culturally influenced by the neighboring Scythians and by the Celtic invaders of the 4th century BC. Name and etymology. Name. The Dacians were known as Geta in ancient Greek writings, and as Dacus or Geta in Roman documents, but also as Dagger and Gat depicted on the late Roman map Tabula Peutingeriana. It was Herodotus who first used the ethnonym Geta in his histories, in Greek and Latin. In the writings of Julius Caesar, Strabo, and Pliny the Elder, the people became known as the Dacians. Geta and Dacians were interchangeable terms, or used with some confusion by the Greeks. Latin poets often used the name Geta. Virgilius called them Geta 4 times, and Daci once. Lucian Geta 3 times and Daci twice. Horace named them Geta twice and Daci 5 times, while Juvenal 1 time Geta and 2 times Daci. In AD 113, Hadrian used the poetic term Geta for the Dacians. Modern historians prefer to use the name Ghetto-Dacians. Strabo describes the Geta and Dacians as distinct but cognate tribes, but also states that they spoke the same language. This distinction refers to the regions they occupied. Strabo and Pliny the Elder also state that Geta and Dacians spoke the same language. By contrast, the name of Dacians, whatever the origin of the name, was used by the more western tribes who adjoined the Pannonians and therefore first became known to the Romans. According to Strabo's Geographica, the original name of the Dacians was Delta Alpha Omicron Iota, Daoi. The name Daoi was certainly adopted by foreign observers to designate all the inhabitants of the countries north of Danube that had not yet been conquered by Greece or Rome. The ethnographic name Daci is found under various forms within ancient sources. Greeks used the forms Delta Alpha Kappa Omicron Iota, Dakoi, and Delta Alpha Omicron Iota, Daoi. The form Delta Alpha Omicron Iota, Daoi, was frequently used according to Stephan of Byzantium. Latins used the forms Davus, Dacus, and a derived form Dacici. The same name is often used in the geographical vocabulary of ancient Persia, where Pliny names among the people of Sogdians the Daha. By the end of the 1st century AD, all the inhabitants of the lands which now form Romania were known to the Romans as Daci, with the exception of some Celtic and Germanic tribes who infiltrated from the west, and Sarmatian and related people from the east. Etymology. The name Daci, or Dacians, is a collective ethnonym. Dio Cassius reported that the Dacians themselves used that name, and the Romans so called them, while the Greeks called them Geta. Opinions on the origins of the name Daci are divided. Some scholars consider it to originate in the Indo-European *dhak, with the stem *dhe, to put, to place, while others think that the name Daci originates in *daka, knife, dagger, or in a word similar to daos, meaning wolf, in the related language of the Phrygians. One hypothesis is that the name Geta originates in the Indo-European *ue, to utter, to talk. Another hypothesis is that Geta and Daci are Iranian names of two Iranian-speaking Scythian groups that had been assimilated into the larger Thracian-speaking population of the later Dacia. Early history of etymological approaches. In the 1st century AD, Strabo suggested that its stem formed a name previously borne by slaves. Greek daos, Latin davus. In the 18th century, Grimm proposed the Gothic dags or day, that would give the meaning of light, brilliant. Yet dags belongs to the Sanskrit word root da, and a derivation from da to delta alpha sigma alpha iota, Daci, is difficult. In the 19th century, Tomášek proposed the form dak, meaning those who understand and can speak, by considering dak as a derivation of the root da, cf. Sanskrit dasa, Bactrian downer. Tomášek also proposed the form davas, meaning members of the clan, countrymen, cf. Bactrian Dāķu, Danhu, canton. Modern times a link between the Proto-Indo-European language roots *dhe meaning to set, place, and dheu dava and dhek Daci is supported by Rush. A possible connection with the Phrygian ddaios, meaning wolf, was suggested by Decv in 1957. The Phrygian meaning is supported by Hesychius's notes. This hypothesis has had a large diffusion due to historian Misha Eliade. In later times, some Roman auxiliaries recruited from the Dacian area were referred to as Phrygi. Moreover, a endonym linked to wolves has been demonstrated or proposed for other ancient Indo-European tribes, including the Luvians, Lycians, Lucanians, Hyrcanians, and Dāķi. Scholars such as David Gordon White have directly linked the Dacians and the Dāķi. The suggestion that Dāi means wolf may also be supported by one of the Dacian standards, the Dacian Draco, that prominently featured a wolf head. The German linguist Paul Kretschmer explained dāos with the root da, meaning to press together, or to strangle. According to Romanian historian and archaeologist Alexandru Vulp, the Dacian etymology explained by dāos has little plausibility, as the Draco was not unique to Dacians, while the transformation of dāos into Dacos is phonetically improbable. He thus dismisses it as folk etymology. The form dors or davas could be also compared to a similar ethnonym in Old Persian, dāos, and to a Phrygian deity also called dāos. Mythological Theories. Misha Eliade attempted, in his book From Zalmoxis to Genghis Khan, to give a mythological foundation to an alleged special relation between Dacians and the wolves. Dacians might have called themselves wolves, or ones the same with wolves, suggesting religious significance. Dacians draw their name from a god or a legendary ancestor who appeared as a wolf. Dacians had taken their name from a group of fugitive immigrants arrived from other regions or from their own young outlaws, who acted similarly to the wolves, circling villages and living from looting. As was the case in other societies, those young members of the community went through an initiation, perhaps up to a year, during which they lived as a wolf. Comparatively, Hittite laws referred to fugitive outlaws as wolves. The existence of a ritual that provides one with the ability to turn into a wolf. Such a transformation may be related either to lycanthropy itself, a widespread phenomenon, but attested especially in the Balkans Carpathian region, or a ritual imitation of the behavior and appearance of the wolf. Such a ritual was presumably a military initiation, potentially reserved to a secret brotherhood of warriors. To become formidable warriors they would assimilate behavior of the wolf, wearing wolf skins during the ritual. Traces related to wolves as a cult or as totems were found in this area since the Neolithic period, including the Vinca culture or artifacts, wolf statues and fairly rudimentary figurines representing dances with a wolf mask. The items could indicate warrior initiation rites, or ceremonies in which young people put on their seasonal wolf masks. The element of unity of beliefs about werewolves and lycanthropy exists in the magical religious experience of mystical solidarity with the wolf by whatever means used to obtain it. But all have one original myth, a primary event. Origins and ethnogenesis. Evidence of Proto-Thracians or Proto-Dacians in the prehistoric period depends on the remains of material culture. It is generally proposed that a Proto-Dacian or Proto-Thracian people developed from a mixture of indigenous peoples and Indo-Europeans from the time of Proto-Indo-European expansion in the early Bronze Age, when the latter, around 1500 BC, conquered the indigenous peoples. The indigenous people were Danubian farmers, and the invading people of the BC 3rd millennium were Kurgan warrior herders from the Ukrainian and Russian steppes. Indo-Europeanization was complete by the beginning of the Bronze Age. The people of that time are best described as Proto-Thracians, which later developed in the Iron Age into Danubian Carpathian Ghetto Dacians as well as Thracians of the eastern Balkan Peninsula. Between BC 15th–12th century, the Dacian Ghetto culture was influenced by the Bronze Age tumulus Hernfield warriors who were on their way through the Balkans to Anatolia. When the Latine Celts arrived in BC 4th century, the Dacians were under the influence of the Scythians. Alexander the Great attacked the Geta in BC 335 on the lower Danube, but by BC 300 they had formed a state founded on a military democracy, and began a period of conquest. More Celts arrived during the BC 3rd century, and in BC 1st century the people of Boia tried to conquer some of the Dacian territory on the eastern side of the Theiss River. The Dacians drove the Boia south across the Danube and out of their territory, at which point the Boia abandoned any further plans for invasion.